You ever notice how political arguments today get so personal, so fast? It feels like every single issue, whether it's taxes or trade, somehow turns into a fight over who we are. But it wasn't always like this. We're going to dig into the huge shift that basically redrew the entire political map.
Yeah, that's the big question, right? Why does it feel like our very identities are on the line in every election? Well, the answer actually lies in a massive change our society went through over the last 50 years or so.
Okay, so here's the simplest way to think about it. Politics used to be all about class, basically what you did for a living. Think factory workers going up against factory owners. But today, it's all about identity, who you are based on your race, your gender, your culture. So the big question is, how on earth did we get from there to here? All right, so to figure out where we are now, we've got to go back and look at the old map. And for more than 100 years, one single concept ruled political thinking more than any other: social class. See, back in the day, the lines felt super clear. In the industrial world, your politics were pretty much decided by your job. Were you part of the bourgeoisie, the folks who own the factories and all the capital? Or were you part of the proletariat, the ones selling your labor just to get by? That was the main dividing line. It shaped, well, pretty much everything. And, this famous quote from Marx, this wasn't just some dusty old idea from a book. No way. This was the engine driving global politics. I mean, we're talking revolutions, entire political parties, massive alliances, all built on this one idea. The main story everyone understood was this constant tug of war between economic classes. But then, things started to change. Around the middle of the 20th century, that whole world started to, well, unravel. You had these three huge forces: economic, social, and political, that just started pulling apart that old class system, leaving this big empty space for something new to rush in. So, first up, the economy. It totally transformed. Those classic industrial jobs in factories and mines, the kind that created this strong sense of union solidarity, they started to vanish. We shifted to a post-industrial, knowledge-based economy. Just think about it. The biggest companies a century ago were giants like US Steel. Today, it's Apple and Amazon. That's not just a different kind of business, it's a whole different world. We went from being a society of producers to a society of consumers and knowledge workers. Second, the way we connect with each other started to get thinner. Sociologists have these fancy German words for it: Gemeinschaft and Gesellschaft. But what it really means is we moved away from those super thick community bonds, your extended family, your local town where everyone knows you, to much thinner, more casual connections like coworkers or people in a club. Our sense of belonging just wasn't as deep anymore.
And this wasn't just some vague feeling, by the way. Robert Putnam's famous research in bowling alone showed a massive drop. We're talking a 25 to 50% drop in people joining anything, from political parties to, yeah, even bowling leagues. That social glue that held our communities together, it was literally dissolving. And third, politics totally leaned into this change. This famous line from Margaret Thatcher, it just perfectly captures the new spirit of the time. The whole focus shifted away from the collective, away from society, and straight on to the individual. The message was to be self-reliant, to be a go-getter. The age of individualism had really, truly arrived.
So you see what's happening, right? The old pillars of society, class, tight-knit communities, they're crumbling. And that creates this vacuum. People still need that sense of belonging, a way to organize themselves politically. And into that vacuum stepped a really powerful new force: identity. And identity politics completely flipped the script. It stopped being about what you do for a living and started being all about who you are. It's a way of doing politics that takes an identity that's been marginalized, whether it's based on race, gender, or religion, and turns it from something seen as a disadvantage into a source of pride and, crucially, political power. A really powerful example of this? Just look at Evo Morales in Bolivia. He didn't just run on a standard socialist platform. No, he channeled his indigenous identity. He wore traditional clothing, he celebrated indigenous symbols, and he framed the whole political fight as a struggle for the dignity of Bolivia's native people. He brilliantly blended the old politics of class with the new politics of identity. And wow, it swept him right into power. And there's usually a pattern to how this works, kind of like a three-step playbook. First, you challenge the negative stereotypes that have been put on your group. Then you reclaim that identity for yourselves. Think rallying cries like Black is beautiful or gay pride.
And finally, you assert that new, proud identity as a tool to demand political change. This is what makes identity politics so deeply emotional and, yeah, often pretty combative. But here's the thing. This massive shift from class to identity, it did way more than just change who votes for who. It created completely new battlegrounds in our politics with a whole new set of rules. And the consequences? Well, they're complicated and often really controversial. I mean, just take the debate over multiculturalism. On one side, the argument is that we have to protect different cultures because that's where our individual identities come from. But on the other side, there's a real concern that this could fracture a shared national identity, or maybe even lead to us tolerating practices that aren't very liberal. It's a central tension of our modern world. This shift also completely reframed that timeless debate about equality. The yes side argues that for the sake of justice and a healthy democracy, we absolutely have to address inequality, which often falls along these new identity lines. But the no side counters that this is just a politics of envy that kills economic growth, and that true justice means rewarding people based on merit, not on their group identity. Of course, nobody has just one single identity, right? This is where the crucial idea of intersectionality comes into play. It's the framework for understanding that our different identities, our race, our gender, our class, all overlap and intersect to create totally unique experiences. So, for example, a Black woman's experience of the world isn't just the Black experience plus the woman's experience. It's a unique, specific experience that exists right at that intersection. And this, as you can imagine, makes things even more complex. The big debates aren't just happening between different identity groups. A lot of the fiercest arguments are happening inside them. There are constant debates within feminism or within religious groups over who really belongs, who gets to speak for the group, and what that identity even means anymore. The boundaries are always being redrawn. Okay, so let's pull this all together. We've traced the fall of class politics, we've seen the rise of the individual, and we've watched identity emerge as the new organizing principle of our world. So what does it all add up to? Well, the most important thing to get is that this shift wasn't some random political fad. It was a direct result of our world becoming more post-industrial and way more individualistic. Identity politics simply filled the void that these huge structural changes left behind. And the end result is the world we're all living in today. It's a world with new political divisions, new priorities, and where the simple act of expressing and defending your personal identity has become a central political act. For better or for worse, the personal has become profoundly political. And all of this leaves us with the million-dollar question. Has this shift, which has given a voice to so many groups that were ignored before, ultimately brought us closer together? Or has it just fractured our society even more by making us focus only on what pulls us apart? The source material leaves that for us to wrestle with. And honestly, finding the answer to that question is probably going to be one of the biggest challenges of the 21st century.